What's up YouTube, this is Aim for Survival, and today we're going to be talking about snares. Stay tuned. Okay everyone, so today we're going to talk about making a snare pole. This is a very cheap and affordable way to put meat on your table, food in your belly, and guess what? It doesn't take much more than a multi-tool and a little bit of snare wire. Now I've got a $3 multi-tool here, an Ozark Trail, and about $3 worth of snare wire right here. This is 270 feet of craft wire. Technically it's floral wire, but while filling it, it definitely meets the needs. I will not break this easily, and you just need it to work one time. Both these things are simple, lightweight, and probably should already be in your kit for one reason or another. Okay, so we're going to move quick on this project today, guys. We're going to try to keep it very short. Now, first thing you need is a stick. Notice this is not a little stick. This stick is about 3 times longer than you would originally think, or at least twice as long, and it is rather meaty. This here, probably about 1.5 feet, a little longer than that. The Ozark Trail saw from the multi-tool made quick work, sawed about halfway into it, and broke it off. No big deal. Now, one end needs to be pointed. Looking at the stick, I noticed I do have a curve at this end and a very straight edge on this end. I probably will go ahead and use the straighter edge to drive into the ground. We will lock our arm against our body with the blade away from us, and we will draw the material toward us while trying to keep the knife as stationary as possible. This will allow us to remove a lot of material quickly. It does not have to be perfect, but we do need a decent point on this. Now, looking at this end here, all we really need is a place for our cable to rest. We will saw out just a little bit of material, making a stop cut. Now, something I want to point out, since we are using improvised materials, we're going to want to make sure everything we do at this stage is perfect. When one thing falls below par, everything else has to take the weight. So all I've done is sawed in a circle all the way around where our wiring is going to go. Now there's just one more step to make this a very viable and reusable option. Your first set may not be a perfect set. You may have to remove and reuse this. So all we're going to do is chamfer the end like we would on any other stake, so that when we drive it into the ground, it does not mushroom out, fracture out, or become unusable. Alright, there we go. Probably more important than the trap itself is your location. You need to find an active game trail and a place of very little obstacle. Animals are creatures of habit, and they're lazy. They like the path of least resistance. Now, looking right here, we found a very worn-in run. I do have freshly disturbed sign, not a whole lot of it. I do have pellets, both back here and on the corner up here where the leaves get a little thicker. So we definitely know we got rabbit right here, and we're going to set our trap to catch it. Before we go any further, everyone, I'd like to go ahead and point out a few things. First off, most primitive improvised trapping is illegal in your state. Material may have certain legal specifications, trap size, etiquette, what you can trap, how and where. Definitely you need a license to trap. All right, but in an emergency situation, it may be all you have. 270 feet and a small package. This is metal wire, little aluminum wire. 270 feet can put a lot of snares out there for you. With that said, you better be prepared to dispatch any animal you do snare. They have the possibility to strangle, mangle, suspend, or just otherwise harm. You won't always come up to a clean kill. So with that said, be prepared to dispatch an animal quickly, humanely, or release it safely. All right, let's get back to the video. We will go ahead and make a loop approximately the size of our hand. I don't know if you can see this in the camera. So we've got about our length that we want. Now for this project, you're definitely going to want to make sure you do the moving end or the snaring part, the snare loop, make it very durable. We'll take it, wrap it around your finger, wrap it around itself several times. This is one of the most common points at which this trap may fail. I've probably got 8 twists in here, so if I can go for 9, and it's very smooth. That is key. Okay, so moving on, we imagine our loop. Now we'll pinch it off and make sure we have plenty to tie around our stake. This is probably the second most common failure feature in improvised snaring. Getting our multi-tool out makes quick work of the wire. So okay, everything's in place. We'll go ahead and run our wire through our loop, creating a loop about the size of our hand. We're going to come off of it about the length of our index finger, figure out if it naturally hangs, and it does. And at this point, we're going to line it up into our groove. Now these improvised snares are very tricky, and only because they're very slick, but that in itself will be one of their strongest attributes. Wrap around the pole just a couple times, and then back around the snare wire. This will do 2 things. First off, it will limit the ability of the animal to pull free. I've seen them slide right off. You don't want an animal loose with a snare around its neck. However, it would also add just a little bit extra rigidity to your snare. Okay. So all I'm doing is wrapping this down and around the snare. Give me that extra support that I'm looking for, and just bending the extra back. No big deal. It doesn't have to be pretty. It's just got to be functional. You want to test to see where it's going to hang. If you need to, pinch it off, give it another wrap around, and you're done. No big deal. Now I like my loop to hang freely below, especially on wire. That way if the animal comes through, it's already on them. The only thing that moves is the loop. Okay, back here to our trap area. Again, the game shell is running along through here. In this case, I am going to go ahead and put it near the fence. The animal will either A, raise his head up or duck it down. Either way, if he goes low, he'll have to raise his head up again to get his butt underneath it, his little cottontail. Now, this is kind of where I want about 4 inches from this fence, and I want about 3 to 4 fingers off the ground. There's a thing that's going to be kind of hard to see back here, but we're going to set this as if we intended for it to catch. I'm going to use a little makeshift baton, and I have sharpened our stake just a little more. Now at this point, you are going to want a larger stake, and yes, it requires a little more work. But the thing is, once this is in the ground and it's got a wild animal tethered to it, the animal is going to fight for his life. And if he can pull it out of the ground, he will. And again, this goes back to the principles. You don't want him running off with your snare. The animal could suffer slowly. You want to make a good kill. And the way to do that is to immobilize the snare wire as best as possible. Okay, when you're satisfied that your snare is in the ground good enough, give it a good pull in all directions, and that extra meat starts to pay off. Now, focusing at the top of the wire snare, we need everything as perfect as we can get it, considering that we do have marginal material here. We want the loop about as wide as we can get it, and we want it about 3 inches off the ground. This wire is perfect for setting, as it is rigid. We'll set our loop into an active position. Make sure that when the rabbit comes through, the only thing that moves is him and this wire. Now, this is only going to be a one-time use snare, but you still want it set with as little snags as possible. So we're going to straighten out our wrapped area. Use that rigid wire to position the loop in the direction of travel. Again, in theory, the rabbit would come through here, put his head through the hole or a leg, and he will be caught around the neck if we're lucky. And no matter how much he struggles, this wire won't give. So again, let me go ahead and reset this, show you what it's going to look like. Smoothing out any kinks in our loop before we start to set it. Opening it up as wide as possible. We did put a crease in our wire. We don't want that. We want a wide loop. The only thing that should move on this trap is the loop end here. And we need it to be as unobstructed as possible all the way to our game animal. So if by testing it you bend it up, no big deal. Just make sure you get these creases out before you leave it alone. Bringing it to about 3 fingers off the ground. Opening up wide on our clear spot. Now we'll just leave her alone and see what happens. Before we go, I definitely want to touch on a couple of topics that I feel are very important in any emergency survival situation. That's first off, conservation of resources. Now, yes, you may have that 22 round that is perfect to do the job on small game. You may have a shotgun. All right, but they're loud. Even when they're suppressed, guys, they're going to give away your position. That's not good. Now, trapping is a very passive way to get food. It's a very silent way. Unless the animal gets snared, it may call out, attract predators or other people, depending on the situation. But set properly, you can increase your chances. Speaking of chances, trapping is a numbers game. You're going to have to set many traps. You're going to have to learn to recognize sign and prints. You're going to have to identify an animal and its size and weight. Be kind of familiar with that. There's a lot of things going to trapping, but I can tell you one thing. If you don't try, you'll never get any. So, well, everyone, I'd like to thank you again for watching Aim for Survival. Today we've demonstrated a pole snare, a very simple but effective way to catch food in an emergency situation. I'll remind you that it's for emergencies only. Practice and demonstrate this technique without seeking live game before you ever try to deploy it actively in the field. Definitely study the signs and the markings of an active trail. But I'm going to go ahead and ask you that if you haven't already, press your like button, comment down below, and subscribe. It's the only way to support the channel at the moment. Until next time, guys, stay safe.